Welcome back, everybody. Joe Concha of the Steve Malzberg Show, filling in on this perfect Wednesday afternoon here in New York. 70 degrees, sunny. September is easily the best month of the year. That's not to even be argued. Anyway, I want you to watch this next interview that Steve did with Tom Fitton. He's the president of Judicial Watch. He's also the New York Times bestselling author and producer of the book Obama's Big Secrecy, Big Corruption, and Big Government. And he talked to Steve earlier this week to respond to a Lois Lerner interview in Politico, where she was pleading innocent and basically was more or less arrogant, was what I took away during this interview. Seems like she had nothing to hide, which is what Steve pointed out. And a lot of great back and forth here between Fitton and Malzberg. Hope you enjoy it. Let's go to that clip right now.
I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee. And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
All right, folks, there she is, Lois Lerner, and the reason she's in the news once again is because she sat down with Politico for 2 hours and gave them an exclusive, the first time she's talked to the media since this whole thing began. Joining us right now is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, a New York Times best-selling author and producer, and the book is Corruption Chronicles, Obama's Big Secrecy, Big Corruption, and Big Government. There it is on your big screen. Hello, Tom.
Steve, good to be with you.
Always good to be with you. So Lois Lerner tells Politico, which is what she told the panel here, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm proud of my career and the job I did for this country. Big surprise, huh?
Well, the Obama administration disagrees. They said the activity was outrageous and they were trying to fire her before she retired and didn't allow them to get her to fire her. The IRS did. You know, Lois Lerner says she has no regrets, yet she went up there last year, planted a question at the American Bar Association meeting. She knew this report that was critical of the conduct of her organization that she ran, the exempt organizations branch of the IRS, which is the agency within the IRS responsible for the suppression. And she apologized and said the activity was inappropriate. So she has no regrets, but is apologizing on behalf of the IRS and her agency, specifically her exempt organizations agency. You know, look, if people want the truth about Lois Lerner, you really can't look to Politico. And, you know, I appreciate the reporter wasn't going to get any substantive material out of this person. But the fact is they interviewed her for 2 hours and there were, what, 4 or 5 comments? And all of which are, woe is me. And my view is, woe is the taxpayer, woe is the victim of this suppression, woe is the donors whose names were improperly obtained and then likely audited as a result. And if Lois Lerner thought she did nothing wrong, why was she excited when they found out the texts at the IRS weren't being recorded? Why was she talking about a disaster of having to talk to Titka or the congressional investigators about this? Why did they keep names they had no basis in keeping? She knew something was up. She's a smart individual. She's politically savvy. And she knew exactly what the left was looking for, which was to essentially make sure that the Tea Party groups and the C4s that were gearing up in the run-up to the re-election campaign went nowhere. And when you see all the Democratic correspondence, she was talking to DOJ about prosecuting C4s in a way that I can't even imagine why they would even be thinking like that. And she thinks she has no regrets. She's been around long enough to understand what the regrets ought to be. And maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she's ignorant, but she certainly acted inappropriately at the exempt organizations branch. And people deserve more answers from her and the administration.
You know, Politico tries to make her into, in my view anyway, a sympathetic figure. starting out right away that employers won't hire her. She's been berated with epithets like dirty Jew. Federal agents have guarded her house because of death threats. She spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending herself against the accusations. A few paragraphs down, it says, and she's a savvy lawyer. If she was such a savvy lawyer, you'd think she might have known that it would be problematic for her to make that opening statement that we heard her make at the top of this interview and then go on to claim the Fifth, when many legal experts say that she threw away her right to claim the Fifth by making that opening statement.
Well, that, and not only that, but she supposedly did talk to the Justice Department at one time, which means she didn't claim the Fifth there. You can't go around claiming the Fifth depending on whether
Right.
you like people asking you the questions.
And of course, yeah, go ahead.
She's not. Look, if this was what's really instructive here, Steve, it seems to me, is if there was a serious criminal investigation of the IRS and what was going on, Lois Lerner wouldn't be talking to Politico about how she handles emails and how she has no regrets.
No, that's an excellent point. It's like she has nothing to fear here, and she
Right.
knows it. Despite the fact, and they do mention on page 3 of this story, some of the emails that were released, at least in one little line they do, where she bemoans far-right conservative talk radio, calling them crazies and a-holes, which, you know, just you take that and you put it against the rest of the story and how they portray her, it kind of brings you to a fork in the road. You can't be both. You can't be the sympathetic figure she's pretending to be, who did nothing wrong and has no political leanings, and then say that about talk radio and conservatives in an email at the IRS.
I think Politico did a good job in the story in that anyone who thinks, who knows what's going on, that she comes off well in this story. You know, as you point out, Politico puts it all out there, and people can judge for themselves whether she's persuasive. You know, and if I were talking to Lois Lerner directly, I'd say, don't play patsy for the administration. Acknowledge that there was this intense political pressure that the IRS was sensitive to. It was coming from Democrats in the Senate. The president was inveighing against these very groups that she and her employees were suppressing.
Of course.
You know, and she's got to take responsibility for the falsehood.
She does, Tom, but of course time will tell whether or not she does and whether or not anybody puts that responsibility on her legally. Tom Fitton, President of Judicial Watch, always great to talk to you, sir. And we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show. Don't go away.